The year was 2347, and humanity had spread across the stars like seeds on the wind. 12 star systems now called themselves home to human colonies. Earth's government had worked hard to keep peace with the alien races they met. The biggest and most powerful of these aliens were the Velcrin Collective. For 30 years, humans and Velcrin had traded goods, shared knowledge, and kept their weapons silent. Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison sat at his station aboard the Earth vessel Horizon's Edge. His job was simple: monitor communications, report anything unusual, and keep the ship connected to the rest of the fleet. It was usually boring work. Most days he listened to routine chatter between ships, updated star charts, and drank too much coffee. That morning started like any other. Jake checked his screens, ran diagnostics on the communication arrays, and thought about his sister back on Earth. She had just had a baby, his first nephew. He smiled at the thought of meeting the kid when his tour ended in 3 months. Then his console beeped. A signal was coming through on multiple frequencies. That was odd. Jake frowned and started tracing the source. The signal was strong, too strong to be accidental. Someone wanted this broadcast to reach as many people as possible. Jake opened the channel. His screen flickered to life, and what he saw made his blood turn to ice. The image showed a large arena. The walls were made of dark metal, and bright lights hung from the ceiling. Hundreds of aliens filled the seats, all of them Velcrin with their gray skin and 4 arms. They were watching something in the center of the arena. A small human girl stood there. She looked about 8 years old. Her blonde hair was dirty and tangled. Her clothes were torn. She was crying. Jake's hand started shaking. He turned up the volume. A Velcrin official was speaking in their language, but the translation software provided subtitles. "This human child has committed a crime against the Velcrin Collective," the official announced. "She and her parents entered restricted Velcrin space without permission. This violation of our treaty cannot be ignored. Let this be a lesson to all humans. You are guests in our galaxy. You will follow our rules." The girl looked confused. She kept calling for her mother. Jake wanted to look away, but he couldn't. He had to see this. He had to record it. "No," Jake whispered. "Please no." The execution was quick. Jake sat frozen in his chair, staring at the screen long after it went dark. His hands wouldn't stop shaking. He felt sick. He forced himself to move. His fingers flew across the console, copying the broadcast and sending it straight to Earth Command. Then he called his captain. "Sir, you need to see this. Right now." Within an hour, every human ship in the sector had received the broadcast. Within 6 hours, it had reached Earth. By the end of the day, billions of humans across 12 star systems had watched an 8-year-old girl die for the crime of being human in the wrong place. Her name was Amy Crawford. Her parents, Helen and Peter, were civilian engineers working at a remote mining colony. There had been an accident, a reactor leak that forced an emergency evacuation. In their rush to escape, they had crossed into Velcrin territory. They didn't know about the obscure treaty clause that made such crossings illegal. The Velcrin had arrested them, separated them from their daughter, and then broadcast her execution to the entire galaxy. The reaction was immediate and explosive. On colony worlds, humans poured into the streets. They weren't protesting. They were rioting. Buildings burned. Alien embassies were attacked. Military recruitment centers were overwhelmed with volunteers. Jake watched the news feeds from his quarters. He hadn't slept. He couldn't eat. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that little girl crying for her mother. His door chimed. His friend and fellow officer, Sophie Blake, stepped inside. Her eyes were red from crying. "Did you hear about her parents?" Sophie asked quietly. Jake shook his head. "They're alive. The Velcrin are holding them prisoner. They made them watch." Jake put his head in his hands. He wanted to scream. He wanted to break something. He wanted to hurt someone. On Earth, Admiral Richard Cole called an emergency meeting with the civilian government. The council chambers were filled with angry voices. Some wanted immediate war. Others urged caution. The Velcrin had more ships, more weapons, more everything. Admiral Cole was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had served in the military for 40 years. He had seen combat, lost friends, made hard decisions, but nothing had prepared him for this. "We must respond," Cole said. His voice was calm, but everyone could hear the anger beneath it. "The Velcrin have murdered a child and broadcast it as entertainment. If we do nothing, they will do it again." "The treaty," one council member argued. "We need to consider the diplomatic implications." The treaty? Cole repeated. He pulled up the broadcast on the main screen. They executed an 8-year-old girl for a technical violation her parents didn't even know about. What treaty? The room fell silent. Everyone stared at Amy's face on the screen. We have families, Cole continued. We have children. If we let this stand, we tell the galaxy that human lives mean nothing, that our children can be killed without consequence. The vote was taken. It wasn't unanimous, but it didn't need to be. Earth would respond, but Admiral Cole didn't wait for the full authorization. He had already sent coded messages to military commanders across human space. Ships were moving. Fleets were repositioning. Weapons were being prepared. There was an old military protocol written decades ago but never used. It was called Protocol Fenrir, named after the great wolf of ancient Earth mythology. It was the plan for total war, the kind of war where humanity held nothing back. Cole activated it with a single encrypted message. The wolf is loose. Across human space, military officers received the signal. They knew what it meant. Some prayed. Some cried. All of them began preparing their ships and crews for what was coming. Captain Lisa Brennan commanded the destroyer Silent Thunder in the outer colonies. When she gathered her crew to show them the broadcast, she watched hardened Marines weep openly. Her chief engineer, Danny Wright, punched a bulkhead so hard he broke 2 fingers. Her communications officer ran from the room to be sick. I know you're angry, Brennan told her crew after the broadcast ended. I'm angry too. But we're military. We don't act on emotion. We act on orders. What are our orders, ma'am? A young Marine asked. Brennan looked at the encrypted message on her command tablet. Her orders were clear. Prepare for combat operations in Velcrin space. Rules of engagement were simple. There were no rules anymore. We're going to make them pay, she said quietly. For Amy, for every human child who might have been next. We're going to show the Velcrin what happens when you hurt our kids. The crew erupted in a roar of approval. Meanwhile, on a colony world called New Haven, a civilian engineer named Marcus Chen watched the news with his family. He had worked with Amy's parents. He had met Amy once. She had shown him a drawing she made of an alien spaceship. She told him she wanted to be an explorer when she grew up. Marcus kissed his own daughter goodnight and then went to his workshop. He started making calls. He knew people. Civilians with ships and weapons and skills, veterans who had retired to the colonies, miners who knew how to use explosives, traders who knew smuggling routes through Velcrin space. By morning, he had organized the first civilian militia. They called themselves Amy's Wolves. The Velcrin made their next mistake 3 days later. They arrested human ambassadors and civilians in their territory. They broadcast another execution, this time a teenage boy caught near a Velcrin military base. Then they executed an elderly human woman who had been living peacefully on a Velcrin world for 20 years. The Velcrin ambassador appeared on galactic news channels. He smiled as he spoke. Humanity must learn respect, he said. One child's death should not matter so much to a civilized species. These emotional displays prove humans are not ready for true galactic society. On Earth, Admiral Cole watched the ambassador's speech. His face showed no emotion. Ready the fleets, he ordered. We go to war in 48 hours. But the war had already begun in the hearts of every human who had seen Amy Crawford die. Captain Lisa Brennan stood on the bridge of the Silent Thunder and watched her crew prepare for war. Every station was active. Every screen showed tactical data. Every officer wore the same expression, a mixture of anger and grim determination. The official Earth response had been diplomatic at first. Strongly worded protests, economic sanctions, demands for justice and the return of human prisoners. The Velcrin had ignored it all. Their ambassador had appeared on news channels again, mocking humanity's weakness. You cry over one child, the ambassador had said, his forearms spread wide in a gesture of contempt. You threaten war over an accident. This proves that humans are too emotional, too primitive for real power. We will do as we please and you will accept it. That had been his last public appearance. The next day, the Velcrin embassy on Earth was found empty. The diplomats had fled in the night knowing what was coming. Admiral Cole sat in his office at Earth Command, surrounded by holographic displays showing fleet positions across human space. He had not slept in 3 days. His uniform was wrinkled. Coffee cups littered his desk. His second-in-command, Commander Victoria Lang, entered without knocking. "The civilian government is calling for you again, sir," she said. "They want to know why our fleets are moving without full authorization." Cole didn't look up from his displays. "Tell them I'm busy." "Sir, they could charge you with insubordination." Maybe worse. Now Cole looked at her. His eyes were hard. "Let them. By the time they figure out what to do about it, the war will be over." "One way or another?" Victoria hesitated, then nodded. She understood. They all understood. There comes a time when following orders matters less than doing what's right. "Protocol Fenrir is fully active," she reported. "All ships are in position. We can begin operations within 12 hours. "Make it 6, Cole said. "The longer we wait, the more time the Velkrin have to prepare." And Victoria sent a message to all commands. "No half measures. No proportional response. We hit them with everything we have." "Yes, sir." She turned to leave, then stopped. "Sir, my daughter is 8. "The same age as Amy." Cole nodded slowly. "I know, that's why we're doing this. So your daughter never has to be afraid." Across human space, similar conversations were happening. Officers told their crews what was coming. Soldiers checked their weapons. Ship captains reviewed attack plans. And everywhere people thought about Amy Crawford, the little girl who had become a symbol of everything humanity was fighting for. On the destroyer Silent Thunder, Captain Brennan called her senior staff to a meeting. Chief Engineer Danny Wright came in with his hand bandaged from punching the wall. Communications Officer Sophie Blake looked like she had been crying. Marine Commander Kevin Hayes had a look in his eyes that Brennan recognized. It was the look of a man ready to do violence. "We have our orders," Brennan began. "We're part of the first strike. Our target is a Velkrin supply depot in the Gamma 7 sector. Intelligence says it's lightly defended. The Velkrin don't think we have the spine for a real fight." "They're wrong," Danny said quietly. "They're very wrong," Brennan agreed. "But I need all of you to understand something. This won't be like the war games we've practiced. This will be real. People we know will die. People we care about. And we're going to kill a lot of Velkrin." She paused, looking at each of them in turn. "Can you do that? Can you look at alien beings and pull the trigger, knowing they have families too, knowing they're people just like us?" Kevin Hayes spoke first. "They killed a child, ma'am. They didn't just kill her. They made it entertainment. Yes, I can pull the trigger." The others nodded in agreement. Brennan had expected nothing less, but she had needed to ask. "Then let's make ready. We jump in 6 hours." Meanwhile, on Earth, Helen and Peter Crawford sat in a government facility. They had been separated from their daughter, arrested by the Velkrin and forced to watch her execution on a view screen in their cell. Then the Velkrin had released them, sending them back to human space with a message. "This is what happens when you break our laws." Helen had not spoken in 3 days. She sat in a chair by the window, staring at nothing. Peter had tried to comfort her, but there were no words that could reach through the wall of grief that surrounded her. A counselor came by every few hours. Medical staff monitored them constantly. Everyone was afraid they might hurt themselves. Peter understood why. He had thought about it. The pain of losing Amy was like a physical weight on his chest. Every breath hurt. Every heartbeat was a reminder that his daughter's heart had stopped. But he kept breathing. He kept his heart beating, because somewhere out there the people who had killed his daughter were still alive, and he wanted to see them pay. A military officer knocked on their door. His name was Lieutenant James Cruz, and he had kind eyes. "Mr. and Mrs. Crawford," he said gently, "I wanted you to know that the fleet is moving. We're going after the Velkrin. We're going to get justice for Amy." Peter looked up at him. "Justice? How do you get justice for murdering a child?" Cruz had no answer for that. He simply nodded and left. In the outer colonies, Marcus Chen had gathered his civilian militia. They called themselves Amy's Wolves, and they numbered in the hundreds now. Ex-military, miners, engineers, traders, even some farmers who knew how to handle weapons from protecting their livestock from local predators. They didn't have military-grade ships. They had cargo haulers, mining vessels, and personal yachts. They didn't have proper weapons. They had mining lasers, improvised explosives, and whatever guns they could buy or build. But they had anger. And they had purpose. "The military won't let us join the official operations," Marcus told his people. They were gathered in a warehouse on New Haven Colony. "They say we're not trained. They say we'll get in the way. So what do we do?" Someone called out. Marcus smiled grimly. "We don't ask for permission. We know the smuggling routes into Velcrin space. We know which colonies have weak defenses. We hit them where the military won't. We make them afraid to sleep at night." The militia cheered. These were people who had lost faith in official channels. They wanted action, and they wanted it now. Back on the Silent Thunder, the crew counted down the hours until the jump. Sophie Blake sat at her communication station, listening to chatter from other ships in the fleet. Everyone was ready. Everyone was waiting. She thought about Amy Crawford. Sophie had never met the girl, but she felt like she knew her. Every human in the galaxy felt that way now. Amy had become more than a victim. She had become a reason, a reminder of what they were protecting. The countdown reached 0. Captain Brennan gave the order. "All ships jump on my mark. 3, 2, 1 mark." The Silent Thunder and 50 other human vessels jumped into faster-than-light travel. They emerged in Velcrin space exactly where they planned, surrounding a massive supply depot. The Velcrin were caught completely off guard. Their sensor operators had been watching old entertainment broadcasts. Their defense platforms were powered down. They never expected humans to actually attack. "All weapons fire at will," Brennan ordered. The Silent Thunder opened fire with every gun it had. Railguns hurled metal slugs at relativistic speeds. Missiles streaked through the void. Energy weapons cut through armor like it was paper. The Velcrin depot exploded in a series of brilliant flashes. Secondary explosions rippled through the structure as stored munitions detonated. Velcrin ships tried to launch from docking bays, but they were destroyed before they could clear the station. It was over in less than 10 minutes. The depot was gone. Hundreds of Velcrin were dead. And across human space, similar attacks were happening at the same time. 20 Velcrin military installations were hit simultaneously. The coordinated strike was devastatingly effective. Admiral Cole watched the reports come in from Earth Command. Every target had been destroyed. Human casualties were minimal. The element of surprise had worked perfectly. "Send a message to the Velcrin command," Cole ordered. "Tell them this is just the beginning. Tell them we want our people back, and we want the officials who ordered Amy's execution. And tell them that if they harm one more human, we will burn their empire to ash." The message was sent. The Velcrin response came 3 hours later. They wanted to negotiate. They wanted to talk about peace terms. Cole deleted the message without reading all of it. "No negotiations," he said to Victoria. "Not until they're beaten. Not until they understand what they've done." The war had truly begun, and humanity had shown the galaxy something it had never seen before. They had shown what humans were capable of when their children were threatened. The Velcrin had expected a limited response, maybe some skirmishes, definitely some diplomacy. Instead, they got total war, and they were starting to realize they had made a terrible mistake. The Velcrin called it the Week of Fire. Humans just called it war. 7 days after the first strikes, Velcrin Military Command finally understood the scale of what they were facing. This was not a limited conflict. This was not a tantrum that would blow over. Humanity had committed everything to this war, and they were fighting with a ferocity that shocked the entire galaxy. Captain Lisa Brennan stood on the bridge of the Silent Thunder, reading casualty reports from the latest engagement. Her ship had participated in a battle near the Velcrin colony of Tarmel. 5 Velcrin cruisers against 3 human destroyers. The Velcrin had superior firepower and numbers. They lost anyway. "How many did we lose?" Brennan asked her first officer. 43 crew members, ma'am. Another 60 wounded. The engineering section took heavy damage. Brennan closed her eyes for a moment. 43 people who would never go home. 43 families who would receive the worst news possible. She knew most of their names. "And the Velcrin?" "All 5 cruisers destroyed, ma'am. Estimated 2,000 casualties." The numbers should have made her feel something. Victory, maybe, or at least satisfaction. But Brennan felt nothing except tired. She wondered if Amy's parents felt the same way, knowing that people were dying because of what happened to their daughter. "Prepare for the next jump," she ordered. "We have another target in 3 hours." Her crew moved to obey without question. That was the thing about this war. Nobody questioned orders anymore. Nobody hesitated. They all knew what they were fighting for. Across Velcrin space, the pattern repeated. Human forces attacked military targets with brutal efficiency. When Velcrin ships tried to fight back, they found themselves outmaneuvered, outfought, and overwhelmed by enemies who refused to retreat even when damaged. Commander Greg Palmer commanded the cruiser Vengeful Spirit. During a battle in the Krell system, His ship took a direct hit to the main reactor. Power failed. Life support failed. Half his crew died in the initial explosion. Palmer and the survivors had maybe 10 minutes before their air ran out. A Velcrin dreadnought was closing in for the kill, probably planning to capture the ship and interrogate survivors. Palmer had other ideas. All hands. "This is the captain," he said over the emergency channel. "Abandon ship. Get to the escape pods now. That's an order." His weapons officer, a young woman named Karen Mills, refused to leave her post. "Sir, I can get one more torpedo spread off if you can position us." Palmer looked at her. She was maybe 25 years old. Her left arm was broken. Blood ran down the side of her face from a head wound, and she was smiling. "You heard the lady," Palmer said to his helmsman. "One more time. Let's make it count." Using only maneuvering thrusters, they positioned the dying ship for a final shot. Karen launched every remaining torpedo at the Velcrin dreadnought. Then she and Palmer ran for the last escape pod. The torpedoes hit the dreadnought's bridge. The massive ship went dark and began to drift. Most of the crew survived, but they were out of the fight. Palmer and Karen made it to the escape pod with seconds to spare. As they watched their ship explode behind them, Karen laughed. "For Amy," she said. "For Amy," Palmer agreed. The Velcrin leadership tried 3 more times to negotiate. Each time, Admiral Cole ignored them. His orders to every human ship were simple. Keep fighting until the Velcrin military is destroyed. But not everyone followed military orders. Marcus Chen and his civilian militia, Amy's Wolves, had entered Velcrin space through old smuggling routes. They hit soft targets, things the military couldn't waste resources on. Supply convoys, communication relays, small outposts. They fought dirty. They used mines and booby traps. They attacked from hiding and disappeared before Velcrin forces could respond. Some people called them terrorists. Marcus called them effective. On a small Velcrin mining colony, Marcus led a team of 20 volunteers. Their target was a communications hub that relayed military orders across 3 sectors. It was guarded by maybe 50 Velcrin soldiers. Marcus and his people waited until night, then struck fast. They used mining explosives to blow the main power generators. In the confusion and darkness, they fought their way to the communications center and destroyed it. 15 of Marcus's people died in the attack. But the communications hub was gone, and 3 sectors of Velcrin military were blind and deaf for days. Back on Earth, public opinion was unified in a way it had never been before. Every news channel showed the same images. Amy's face, battle footage, interviews with soldiers. Nobody talked about peace. Nobody suggested compromise. Helen and Peter Crawford had become reluctant celebrities. Everyone wanted to interview them, to hear them talk about Amy. They refused most requests. But eventually they agreed to one press conference. Helen stood at the podium, Peter beside her. Her eyes were still red from crying, but her voice was steady. "Our daughter loved drawing," Helen said. "She drew pictures of aliens and spaceships. She wanted to explore the galaxy and make friends. She believed in peace." The reporters were silent, waiting. "Amy would not have wanted this war," Helen continued. "She would have been sad that people are dying. But the Velcrin took that choice away from her. They took everything away from her. So we support what Earth is doing, not because we want revenge, but because no other parent should have to bury their child like this." Peter stepped forward. His hands gripped the podium so hard his knuckles turned white. "The Velcrin thought killing one human child wouldn't matter," he said. "They were wrong. Every child matters. Every life matters. And if they had to learn that lesson the hard way, then so be it." The press conference was broadcast across human space and beyond. Other alien civilizations watched and began to understand. Humanity was not going to stop. This war would end only one way. Lieutenant Nicole Grant commanded a stealth ship called the Shadow Walker. Her mission was different from the others. While the fleet fought the Velcrin military, Nicole was hunting the magistrate who had ordered Amy's execution. His name was Velkir, and he was somewhere on the Velcrin homeworld. Protected by layers of security, surrounded by guards, confident that he was safe. Nicole spent 3 weeks gathering intelligence. She monitored communications. She bribed informants. She studied security patterns. And finally, she found a way in. Her team consisted of 5 people, all volunteers. All knowing this was probably a one-way trip. They infiltrated the Velcrin homeworld using false identification codes. They posed as refugees from a colony that had been captured by human forces. The Velcrin were so overwhelmed by the war their security was stretched thin. Nobody looked too closely at a few more displaced persons. It took them another week to get close to Velkir. He lived in a fortified compound in the capital city. Nicole and her team studied the compound from nearby buildings. They memorized guard rotations. They identified weaknesses. "There's no good way in," her second-in-command, Corporal Luis Torres, observed. "We're going to have to fight our way through." "I know," Nicole said. "Everyone still willing?" They all nodded. They had all seen Amy's execution. They all knew what this mission meant. They went in at dawn. Nicole led the way, her weapon up and ready. They encountered the first guards at the outer checkpoint. The firefight lasted 30 seconds. The guards died. So did one of Nicole's team, a young man named Chris who had joined the military after watching Amy die. They fought through the compound room by room. More guards died. Nicole took a hit to her left arm. The pain was incredible, but she kept moving. Luis was hit in the leg. He kept fighting. They found Velkir in a secure room surrounded by his personal guards. The magistrate looked shocked when humans burst through his door. He probably thought he was untouchable. He was wrong. The guards fought hard, but Nicole's team fought harder. When it was over, Velkir was on his knees, his forearms bound behind his back. 3 of Nicole's team were dead. She and Luis were both badly wounded. "You cannot do this," Velkir said in broken English. "I am a magistrate. I have diplomatic immunity." Nicole looked down at him. Her left arm hung useless at her side, blood soaking through her uniform. "You killed a child," she said. "You made it a show. Now you're coming with us." Getting out of the compound was harder than getting in. Velcrin security forces had figured out what was happening. Nicole and Luis fought a running battle through the city streets. Luis took another hit and couldn't walk. Nicole dragged him, refusing to leave anyone behind. They made it to the extraction point with minutes to spare. A human stealth shuttle picked them up under heavy fire. As they lifted off, Nicole looked back at the burning compound and smiled despite the pain. "Mission accomplished," she said, then passed out from blood loss. The news that humans had captured Velkir spread across the galaxy in hours. The Velcrin were humiliated. An enemy strike team had penetrated their homeworld, reached into the heart of their capital, and stolen one of their highest officials. More importantly, it proved that nowhere was safe. If humans could reach Velkir, they could reach anyone. The war was 3 months old now. The Velcrin military was in shambles. Their fleets were scattered. Their colonies were under siege. And still Admiral Cole refused all offers to negotiate. "When they're beaten," he told his staff, "when they have nothing left to fight with, then we'll talk." The war was 4 months old when the Velcrin finally broke. Their military command station orbited their capital world like a steel moon. It was the brain of their entire defense network. Thousands of officers worked inside, coordinating fleets across hundreds of systems. The station was protected by the strongest shields the Velcrin could build and defended by their best remaining warships. Admiral Cole sent half the human fleet to take it. Captain Lisa, Brennan's Silent Thunder, was part of the assault force. Her ship had been in continuous combat for 4 months. The hull was scarred with battle damage. 2 of her main guns were offline. Half her crew was new, replacements for those who had died in previous fights. But her ship could still fight, and so could she. "All ships, this is the flag." Admiral Cole's voice came over the command channel. "We hit them hard and fast. No mercy, no quarter. Show them what happens when they hurt our children." The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation, 60 warships against the Velcrin's last major stronghold. The defenders immediately opened fire. Space lit up with weapons fire. Missiles streaked through the void. Energy beams carved through armor. Ships on both sides exploded in brilliant flashes. Brennan watched her tactical display and called out targets. "Concentrate fire on that cruiser. Helm, bring us around. Weapons, I want a full spread on my mark." Her crew worked with practiced efficiency. The Silent Thunder shuddered as it took hits, but the shields held. Her weapons officer, Lieutenant Sarah Kim, launched everything they had at a Velcrin cruiser. The enemy ship broke apart. "Good shot," Brennan said. "Next target." But the Velcrin weren't giving up. They knew this was their last stand. If the command station fell, the war was over. They fought with desperate courage. The battle raged for 6 hours. Ships died on both sides. Brennan lost count of how many enemy vessels they destroyed. She stopped watching the casualty reports from friendly ships. If she thought about it too much, she couldn't keep fighting. Chief Engineer Danny Wright called up from engineering. His voice was strained. "Captain, we've got a problem. Reactor 2 is overheating. If I can't get it under control, we'll have to eject it." "How long do you need?" 20 minutes. Maybe 30. "You've got 15, Brennan said. "After that, we lose the firepower advantage." She could hear Danny swear over the open channel. "Yes, ma'am. I'll make it work." 14 minutes later, Danny called back. "Reactor's stable. You've got full power. Good work." Brennan allowed herself a small smile. Danny had been with her since the beginning. He had punched a wall when they first saw Amy's execution. Now he was keeping her ship running through impossible odds. The turning point came when a wing of human fighters broke through the Velcrin defensive line. They were small, fast, and flown by pilots who didn't care about living through the battle. They just cared about winning it. The fighters hit the command station's shield generators. One by one, the generators failed. The station shields collapsed. "All ships, the station is open," Admiral Cole ordered. "Hit it with everything." Every human ship in range opened fire. Hundreds of weapons struck the station simultaneously. The massive structure shuddered under the impact. Hull breaches vented atmosphere into space. Internal explosions rippled through the station. The Velcrin defenders tried to retreat, but there was nowhere to go. Human ships surrounded them. One by one, the Velcrin warships were destroyed or forced to surrender. The command station was dying. Emergency shuttles launched, carrying survivors away. Brennan watched them go and felt nothing. No satisfaction, no joy, just exhaustion. "Cease fire," Admiral Cole ordered. "The battle is over." Brennan slumped in her command chair. Around her, the bridge crew looked stunned. They had won. After 4 months of constant fighting, they had finally broken the Velcrin military. But the cost was high. Brennan pulled up the casualty list. 15 human ships destroyed, thousands dead. Among them was Danny Wright. He had died in the last minutes of the battle when a Velcrin missile penetrated the Silent Thunder's armor and detonated near engineering. Danny had stayed at his post, keeping the reactor stable until the ship could be evacuated. He saved 200 lives. Brennan read his name on the casualty report and felt her throat tighten. Danny had been more than her chief engineer. He had been her friend. "Captain?" Sarah Kim's voice was gentle. "Are you okay?" Brennan wiped her eyes and straightened in her chair. "I'm fine. Send a message to all departments. We won. Danny would be proud." 2 hours after the battle, the Velcrin leadership sent an unconditional surrender. They agreed to every human demand. They would disband their military. They would hand over war criminals for trial. They would pay reparations. They would do whatever Earth asked. Admiral Cole accepted the surrender. The war was over. On Earth, people celebrated in the streets. Parties erupted in every city. Strangers hugged each other. Children waved flags. After 4 months of fear and anger, humanity could finally breathe. But not everyone celebrated. In military hospitals across human space, wounded soldiers wondered if the victory was worth the price. In morgues, bodies were prepared for burial. In countless homes, families mourned those who would never come back. Lieutenant Nicole Grant woke up in a hospital bed. Her left arm was gone, lost to infection from the wound she took capturing Velkir. She felt strange, lighter somehow. The doctors said she would get a prosthetic. A nurse told her the war was over. Humans had won. Velkir would stand trial for his crimes. Nicole nodded slowly. "Good," she said. "That's good," but she didn't feel good. She felt empty. 3 of her team had died getting Velkir. Thousands of others had died in the war, and none of it would bring Amy Crawford back. The trial of Velkir was broadcast across the galaxy, just as Amy's execution had been. But this was different. This was orderly, legal, fair. The magistrate stood accused of murder, war crimes, and crimes against sentient beings. The evidence was overwhelming. His own words, recorded during the execution broadcast, condemned him. Helen and Peter Crawford attended the trial. They sat in the front row and watched the alien who had killed their daughter. Velkir looked smaller now, without his guards and official robes. He looked afraid. The verdict was guilty on all counts. The sentence was life imprisonment without possibility of release. He would spend the rest of his long life in a cell, thinking about what he had done. Some people wanted him executed. They said death was the only fair punishment for killing a child, but the judges chose imprisonment instead. "We are not the Velcrin," the chief judge explained. "We do not kill for revenge. We seek justice, and justice is served by removing this individual from society forever." Helen and Peter held hands as the sentence was read. When it was over, they left the courtroom without speaking to reporters. That night, alone in their quarters, Helen finally broke down. She had been holding herself together for months, being strong for the cameras and the government officials. But now, with the war over and the trial finished, she had nothing left to hold on to. She cried in Peter's arms. He cried too. They mourned their daughter, really mourned her for the first time since her death. "I'm glad they didn't kill him," Helen whispered. "Amy wouldn't want that. She was kind. She believed people could be better." "I know," Peter said. "I know." Admiral Cole gave his final address to the fleet. He looked older than he had 4 months ago. The stress of command had aged him years and months. "We won this war," he told his officers. "We showed the galaxy what happens when you hurt human children. We protected our people and punished those who wronged us, but we also revealed something about ourselves." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "We showed that we're capable of terrible violence, total, complete destruction of our enemies. That capability kept us safe this time, but it's also dangerous. If we're not careful, if we let anger control us, we could become the very thing we fought against." His words were recorded and sent to every military academy, to be studied by future generations. Captain Brennan attended Danny Wright's funeral. It was held on his home colony, a small world called Green Haven. His family was there, his parents and 2 sisters. They thanked Brennan for bringing their son's body home. "He talked about you in his letters," Danny's mother said. "He said you were a good captain, that he trusted you." Brennan didn't know what to say to that. She had sent Danny into battle knowing he might die. She had given the orders that put him in harm's way, and now he was gone. "He died saving his shipmates," Brennan managed. "He was brave." "He died for Amy," Danny's father said quietly. That's what his last letter said, that he was fighting for a little girl who never got to grow up. Brennan attended 17 more funerals over the next month. Each one was harder than the last. Each time she met families who had lost someone. Each time she tried to explain that their sacrifice mattered. She wasn't sure she believed it anymore. 1 year after Amy Crawford's death, humanity had changed. The war was over. The Velcrin Collective no longer existed as a unified empire. Their territory had been divided into occupation zones, overseen by human military forces. Their weapons had been confiscated. Their leaders stood trial for war crimes. Admiral Lisa Brennan, promoted after the war, commanded the occupation forces in the northern sectors. She made sure human soldiers treated Velcrin civilians fairly. Food was distributed. Medical care was provided. Schools reopened. Some of her officers questioned this mercy. "They killed a child," one young captain said during a staff meeting. "They broadcast it for entertainment. Why are we helping them?" Brennan looked at him with tired eyes. "Because we're better than they were. We fight to protect the innocent. We don't become monsters to defeat monsters." It was a lesson she repeated often. The occupation could have been brutal. Human soldiers had every reason to be cruel, but Brennan wouldn't allow it. Neither would Admiral Cole or the other senior commanders. "We won this war because we were angry," Cole said in a speech to new officers. "But we'll win the peace by being better than our anger." The Velcrin people struggled with their new reality. Their empire was gone. Their pride was shattered. Young Velcrin learned about the war in school and felt shame for what their leaders had done. Not all humans wanted reconciliation. There were protests on Earth demanding harsher treatment of the Velcrin. Some veterans couldn't forgive. Some families who lost loved ones wanted revenge. Helen and Peter Crawford became voices for peace. They established a foundation in Amy's name, dedicated to education and cultural exchange. They spoke at universities and government meetings. Amy believed in making friends across the stars, Helen told an audience at a major university. She drew pictures of aliens. She wanted to explore and learn. Her dream died with her, but we can honor it by building the kind of galaxy she would have wanted. Not everyone agreed with them. Some people called them traitors. Others said they were dishonoring their daughter's memory. Peter responded to the critics in an interview. Amy wouldn't want more killing. She was 8 years old. She loved everyone. If she could see what happened, the war that followed her death, she would be sad. So we choose to be sad with her, but also to build something better. Lieutenant Nicole Grant, recovered from her injuries and fitted with an advanced prosthetic arm, became an instructor at Earth's Naval Academy. She taught young officers about command decisions and the weight of responsibility. Her classes always began the same way. She showed a picture of Amy Crawford. "This is why we exist," Nicole told her students. "Not to make war, not to conquer, but to protect. Every decision you make as an officer should be guided by one question. Are you making the galaxy safer for children like Amy?" She told them about the mission to capture Valkyr, about the 3 teammates who died, about losing her arm, about the cost of justice. "War is easy to start," she said. "Ending it justly is much harder. Winning it is even harder. But the hardest thing of all is living with what you did during it." Some of her students understood. Others were too young, too eager for glory. Nicole recognized that eagerness. She had felt it once. The war had burned it out of her. Marcus Chen and his civilian militia, Amy's Wolves, disbanded after the war. Some members returned to their old lives. Others joined the military officially. A few couldn't adjust to peace and kept fighting, launching attacks on Velcran civilians until human authorities arrested them. Marcus himself went back to engineering. But he couldn't forget what he had done during the war. The people he had killed, the risks he had taken. Sometimes he woke up at night sweating, remembering battles. His daughter asked him once about the war. "Did you kill people, Daddy?" Marcus looked at her. This beautiful girl who was safe because of what he had done. "Yes," he said honestly. "I did things I'm not proud of, but I did them to protect you, so you would never have to be afraid." She hugged him. "I love you, Daddy." He held her close and tried not to cry. Admiral Richard Cole retired 6 months after the war ended. In his final public appearance, he spoke to a crowd of thousands. "We won a war," he said, "but we also lost something. We lost our innocence. We proved we could be as violent and ruthless as any species in the galaxy. That knowledge will stay with us forever." He paused, looking out at the crowd. "But we also proved something else. We proved that we protect our own, that we value every life, even one small girl that most of the galaxy had never heard of. That's worth remembering, too." Cole retired to a quiet farm on Earth. He spent his days growing vegetables and watching the sunset. He never gave another interview. He never wrote his memoirs. He just wanted to forget. But the galaxy wouldn't let him forget. Wouldn't let any of them forget. Other alien civilizations watched what happened and learned. They learned that humans could be pushed, but only so far. That there was a line invisible but absolute that should never be crossed. Trade with human space increased. Diplomatic relations strengthened. But there was always an edge of fear now. Other species approached humanity carefully, respectfully, knowing what lay beneath the friendly exterior. On the first anniversary of Amy's death, memorials were held across human space. People gathered in silence to remember a little girl they had never met, but whose death had changed everything. In the capital city of Earth, a monument was unveiled. It showed Amy smiling, holding a drawing of a spaceship. The inscription read, "Amy Crawford, beloved daughter, dreamer of peace, forever 8 years old." Helen and Peter stood before the monument holding hands. Thousands of people attended the ceremony. Military officers in dress uniforms, government officials, ordinary citizens, even some young Velcran who had come to pay respects. Helen spoke briefly to the crowd. "My daughter loved to draw. She loved to imagine. She believed the galaxy could be a place of friendship and wonder. The Velcran took her from us and humanity responded with fury. But now the fury has passed and we're left with a choice. Do we let anger define us? Or do we honor Amy by building the future she dreamed of?" The crowd was silent, listening. "I choose to honor her," Helen continued, "by forgiving even when it's hard, by building bridges even with those who hurt us, by making the galaxy safer for all children, human and alien. That's how we keep Amy's dream alive." Not everyone agreed. But slowly, over time, more people began to listen. The desire for revenge faded. The anger cooled. Humanity began to heal. Captain Jake Morrison, who had first received Amy's execution broadcast, requested a transfer to diplomatic service. He wanted to help build peace, not maintain war readiness. His application was approved. He spent his days working with young Velcrin and humans, teaching them to understand each other. It was slow work, frustrating work, but it was important. One day, a young Velcrin student asked him why humans fought so hard for one child. Jake thought about how to answer. Finally, he said, because every child is important. Every life matters. If we don't protect the smallest and weakest among us, then we've failed as a civilization. The Velcrin student nodded slowly, beginning to understand. In military academies across human space, the war became a case study. Students analyzed the tactics, the strategy, the political decisions, but they also studied the moral questions. When is total war justified? How do you maintain humanity when fighting for survival? What are the long-term costs of victory? There were no easy answers. On a quiet colony world, a human mother walked with her young daughter past a playground. Children played on the swings and slides, human and alien children together, laughing and shouting. The daughter pointed at a small memorial statue showing Amy Crawford. "Mommy, who is that?" The mother knelt down, looking into her daughter's eyes. "That's Amy. She was a little girl like you. Something bad happened to her and it made people very angry. There was a big war. A lot of people were hurt. Is the war over now?" "Yes, sweetheart. The war is over. And because of what happened, the galaxy is trying to be better, trying to make sure nothing like that ever happens again." The daughter looked at the statue thoughtfully. "She looks nice." She was nice, the mother agreed. She loved drawing and dreaming about the stars. Just like you. They continued their walk, passing the playground where children played without fear. Human soldiers patrolled nearby, watching over the mixed population. Velcrin workers helped rebuild damaged buildings alongside human engineers. The peace was fragile. It rested on a foundation of remembered violence. Everyone knew what had happened. Everyone remembered the fury that humanity had unleashed, but they also remembered why. They remembered Amy, the 8-year-old girl who became a symbol. Not a symbol of war, but a reminder of what they were protecting. In his retirement, Admiral Cole received thousands of letters. Some thanked him for his service. Others condemned him for the lives lost. He read them all but answered none. One letter came from a young Velcrin who had lost his father in the war. The letter was angry, demanding to know why the Admiral had taken so much from the Velcrin people. Cole stared at that letter for a long time. Then he wrote a response, the only one he ever sent. "Your father died in a war that should never have happened," he wrote. "He died because your leaders made a terrible choice. They killed a child to make a point. Humanity responded with everything we had.